welcome to Understanding Traumatic Brain Injury, TBI. My mission for this group was to set up a group for people that are survivors or caregivers to find information, support, and get awareness. My main goal is get awareness. We have a mixture of people that are on the membership, which we just hit 3.7K, and we're still growing. I mean, it's like every week I'm going more and more up to, I mean, I'm just amazed. I'm blown away that it's gone this way. I'm glad it's going this way because it's telling me it's a needed thing. It's definitely needed. And I would like to introduce Amber. How do you say your last name? I don't want to ruin your name.
Oh, everybody else. Lohret.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Took me a long time to pronounce it right too.
Oh, so we're talking about your book and your experience with your TBI. How has it changed your life?
Oh, so basically it's like how hasn't it changed my life? In the beginning when it first happened, which was a little over 4 years ago, it was, I was very negative about it. Of course, it was bad timing. It was during COVID. And the year before, I was in a car accident where a drunk driver hit my friend and I, which I ended up having neck surgery. So then, I think it was 8 months later, I ended up getting hit with the patio picnic umbrella. And
Ooh.
it was just, it wasn't secured right in the picnic table, and a gust of wind picked it up. And it was just a lot of adjustments and changes to life. And I've heard a lot with TBI survivors, and I was right in that category where I was trying to live the life I was living before brain injury, and it just really wasn't going well, and it was making my symptoms worse and my mood worse, and I had to make a change. And so then to change my life even more, my doctor took me out of work, and I was a psychiatric nurse, or I am a psychiatric nurse, but I can't work with psych patients. It's too much of a risk of re-injury. And that changed my whole life. I worked really hard to become a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can't work as one. So, but then with that 2 years, I really started to deal with the trauma of the brain injury and deal with my mood and emotions, and tried turning it into positive, even though there's still a lot of negative to it. And, every day is healing, and every day you have to kind of just figure out, is it a good day or a bad day?
Right. So it's just a matter of adjusting to life as now.
Yeah.
It's an everyday thing. I'm a caregiver. My husband had a fall off of a ladder that collapsed at work, and he hit the back of his head. He was 6 to 8 feet in the air, and he suffered a moderate traumatic brain injury. It was actually borderline, but it was more moderate, thank God. He came out of it fairly well, but to have 5 or 6 neurologists shake his hand and say, "You're a miracle because you shouldn't even be here."
Wow.
The type of he had a secondary to the frontal lobe too, because when the force of hitting the back of your head forces the brain to hit in the frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So he had a secondary injury, and that has expanded, and they don't know why. And I don't think there's enough research being done with traumatic brain injury and finding neurologists that are willing to work with them. I know it's difficult, they can't predict, but there's still after effects that go on for years.
Oh yeah, yeah, I mean, I have symptoms every day, whether it's if I'm, just have a headache or a migraine or I'm really fatigued, and again, it's been over 4 years, and it's considered, a total permanent thing. It's not, no matter what I do or whatever I do to heal or medicine or whatever it may be, it's not going to go away.
Right.
And same situation. I was hit in the back of the head, but it definitely did some stuff to the frontal. I mean, it was I had, I think it was a 10 centimeter laceration. It was a huge open, you know, uh, wound in the back of my head. And I believe I ended up with 30 staples. I can't remember exactly, but um, there's definitely not enough research. And my first neurologist I ever saw was, it's good that I'm a nurse, so I'm able to advocate for myself. At the time, I was just out of it and very foggy, and I didn't, but she really was upsetting. She was just very not compassionate and kind of like, oh, okay, so you have, your brain's all messed up. You have brain injury, but over time, you'll heal. And I was like, will I? Because this is really taking a long time. And although it was only a couple months, but I was frustrated at the time. I wanted to just be better. And now, 4 years later, it's like, boy, was she wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a hangnail. It's not a broken bone that just goes away after, your bone heals. This is your brain. This
Right.
is a major organ that controls your whole nervous system. It controls a lot. I mean, you're lucky if you have long-term memory. Most people that have TBI have their long-term memory.
Yeah. I don't have a short-term memory, but
Right.
yeah, right.
Short-term. My husband has trouble with short-term. I would tell him about an event that we're having in the family, and then he'll accuse me of not telling him. And I'm like, I told you. So I have to repetitively tell him 3 days beforehand, we're going here, we're going here, we're going here. And I do it in a nice way. Oh, by the way, like it's new, because I don't want to upset him. My background, my older sister was hit by a car when she was 6. It was a horrific accident in Holyoke in 1967 in Holyoke, Massachusetts. A woman had a medical emergency behind the wheel of the car, hit all 11 kids. 3 died. 1 died a few days later, and my sister survived with a severe head injury. So I grew up with a sibling with a head injury. And I call it a first full circle for me, because if I didn't live through that, I wouldn't know how to handle my husband and deal with. And then I went to school for developmental disability technology, which took me forever to say. It's a degree in science, but I can work with the disabled population. So I decided I had to do a 400-hour internship in a group home, which I knew was not for me. So I ended up working with children because I learned I had a way of being calming, because I used to have to calm my sister because she would get agitated. She would get violent. Unfortunately, she was more violent. There was no gray area with her. There was only if she was depressed, she was sad, she was depressed. If she was angry, she was furious. There was nothing in between. So I did, and it was funny because when I started working with children, I thought I don't want to deal with the behavioral kids. I'll just do the profoundly handicapped population. Well, I'll never say never, because I ended up working in an ABA program for autistic children. And the background of an ABA was actually set up to work with TBI patients.
Wow.
I found that out after I started working, and then my husband ended up having a TBI, and I do ABA on my husband now.
Oh, sure. Well, that's also, I mean, that's really, that's good. Yeah, a lot of caregivers. I've struggled with my family, and not to say they're doing anything wrong. It's just, I do think it's a little different when the caregiver is a woman, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but
Right.
we obviously have more of a nurturing demeanor about us. And so, um, with my husband, and he's also a military, he comes from a military background. So it's kind of like, oh, well, you know, he doesn't complain about much and doesn't say much. And so I think he thought I would be better by now. And also sometimes it's like, if I do have a good day, then I think he gets hopeful. And then, I'll have like 3 or 4 or 5 or 7 really bad days. And it's kind of like, well, this can't be your brain injury. And I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, it can. And so that's a part of my book. Really, it was therapy for me to just sit and write and write and write about things I was feeling and things that I couldn't really express or make sense of with my words. And really, I wanted my family to read the book to understand better. Um,
Great.
but of
Yeah.
course, it became much more than that by, I just want to help others. I want to make sure they don't feel alone. And if they have a TBI or whatever kind of trauma or illness, or I've had a lot of people say that, they don't have a TBI, but they've read the book and they could really relate to a lot of the things I said.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, caregivers, they have a very hard job, and I do understand that. And I do think it takes a lot of education and understanding on both ends.
Yeah. Um, but like you said, caregivers, some of them don't have the knowledge I have.
Right.
Able to know that, because when my husband was in the hospital, he was 2 weeks in the hospital, 2 weeks in rehab. He didn't understand um, what therapy is. He's never experienced being in a hospital ever. And this was the first thing. What a way to do it, right? So he would get very agitated, and he wasn't a good patient. He was I walked around forever saying, I should wear a sign that says, sorry, no filters, sorry, because, there's no filters. It just comes out of his mouth. Um, so um, I'm just going through in my mind what he was possibly feeling at the time. Like, what the heck is going on with me? And they kept telling him, you have a head injury. They told him what happened. He doesn't remember them telling him.
Right. And so that, I'm sure, was really frustrating for him too, just not even understanding an injury at all. Like you said, a bone, you can see the broken limb, you can see the cast, you can see, if you have surgery, you can see the scar, whatever it may be, but you can't see the brain injury. So obvious. And a lot of times with a brain injury survivor, acceptance is a huge thing. And it took me, every day I am practicing to accept my brain injury. But once I started doing that, it did become a little more clear about, what I'm able to do, what I'm not able to do, or what I need to be mindful of and take a break if I'm feeling a little overwhelmed or overstimulated. When you are still in that phase of denial or
Right.
whatever it may be, it's easier to push yourself until really you just collapse, and you just still don't even understand what's going on with you.
Right. Right. And it's got to be scary. It's got to be scary, especially if you were rushed to the hospital, if you lost consciousness, and all of a sudden you're waking up in a hospital.
Yeah. And that's a very scary situation. And you just want whatever is going to comfort you. I remember, well, I don't really remember. It was more of my friend told me, and all this. I guess I was refusing to go to the hospital at one point. I was telling the rescue squad people, no, I'm fine. And luckily my friend who was a nurse was there with me, and she was like, she can't refuse to, like, she's got to go. But I don't remember. I don't know what the heck I was thinking at the time. I don't know. Um, and then after, I everything was just very foggy. It was very, very foggy, and it was just kind of like you're just walking through the world like a zombie. You just don't know how you're really feeling or what's really going on inside your head.
And you're trying to find yourself again.
Well, actually, and until you learn to accept it, you're searching for your old self, and which for me caused a lot of anger and frustration, towards the situation and towards my family and towards myself.
Wow. Um, this is why I like to have someone that had suffered a traumatic brain injury to get your point of view on what you're going through, and me being receptive as a caregiver. I have no clue what you have gone through or anything, but you can voice it, and you voiced it in your book, which I think is tremendously going to be helpful because it's a perspective of somebody that survived it.
Yeah. So that's really truly, and again, like, definitely for TBI survivors and caregivers, because I do think it's very important. Even as a nurse, like, I understand, like, now I even have more compassion for people in general, because you work as a nurse and sometimes you're kind of like, oh, here I go again, like, but now you think about it and you're like, wow, these people really might have been hurting or sad or whatever it is they're feeling. You really have to, I think our world definitely lacks compassion for others, and I think, if anything, that my TBI gave me, it's even more compassion than I had before, because I just think it's very important to be helpful to others and love
Mm-hmm.
others, and just understand everybody's going through something,
Right.
and just to give them, a smile or some sort of positive to this world, then maybe it can make all the difference. Being vulnerable, that's another big thing. I struggled, and that's something. I was a very independent person, and so to have to depend on people or even ask for help was a huge struggle, huge. And it took me a long, long time to be able to ask for help and not feel guilty or frustrated or pissed off, I mean. And so, but now, being kinder to myself and being able to be vulnerable has really opened up, like, a lot of new friendships and just new connections, that if I continued to be, like, this stubborn person, I wouldn't have learned that I could have these connections. I think a lot of people struggle with vulnerability and really just saying, hey, I need help.
Yeah. Vulnerability is a thing, because especially if you're sharing something about yourself, like yourself, your experience, you are opening your vulnerability and your emotions and everything else. Um, it's you're right. Everybody has a hard time with that. But when you think you're going to help someone else that's in the same situation or close to, then it makes it more sense, and you're more able to say, you know what, I can do this. And that's pretty where I was when I was starting this group, because it started me with the trauma doctor telling me that my husband suffered a moderate TBI, and I'm like, what the heck is a TBI? I never heard the term. And I'm like, okay. So I went home and researched it, and then I kept researching. I'm like, there's somebody out there that's probably going through what I'm going through that could use this information. So then I started a YouTube channel, and I've done 5 or 6 informational videos that I precisely cut down on, it's like a slide video. It's to the point because some of the TBI attention span might not be there.
Yeah.
You know, you can pause the video and get back to it. You have to read. And it's also helping visually to read. And you can find my YouTube channel, Dexter-Understanding TBI, I believe it's under. And it's also on my Facebook page. There's one that I wrote, it's called My Silent Rage, which was, I put it to a video, but it was a poem. And it was everything that my husband was telling me, what he was going through and what I noticed. And I put it in a poem, and then I put it into a video.
That one, I have watched some of yours, but so a lot of my book has my poems in it. I think poems are just very helpful, expressing, what it is you need to express.
Yeah. And it like you said, it's therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always liked writing, but boy, ever since especially when I was taken out of work, that's when it really took off, because I could, I had the ability before. I would just go to work and then come home and crash. Like, luckily the first year and a half I was allowed to work from home, because of COVID and all of that. But I would literally sign off, and I would have to nap, and I would nap for hours. And then of course I wouldn't sleep at night. I was diagnosed with insomnia after my brain injury, which doesn't help a brain injury, because you need rest, you need sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just this vicious, evil cycle of, I would be so fatigued, I'd nap, and then I couldn't sleep, and then I would be so tired the next day. And unfortunately, my kids, even now, they get this mom that they're not really quite used to.
Right.
Luckily they are older now, they're teenagers, and then I have a 21-year-old, but they're learning. But I used to be this very energetic, go, go, go type of mom, and we would always be busy. And now I'm kind of like, oh, not today. Gotta stay home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Frustrating.
Yeah. Being a mom, trying to work, trying to recover from a life-changing injury. Have you noticed that it changed your personality?
Oh, yeah. It has changed. I'll just randomly cry. Even right now talking, like, there's moments where I'm like, oh, I'm going to start crying, but then I don't. But the crying, I'll be watching a comedy and I'll just start crying for no reason. Just tears flow. There are moments when I am just way too overstimulated, and I just have to either walk away or, basically that's it. I have to walk away, or I will just, it becomes like a really frustrated mood. And it's hard because you want to explain yourself, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't want to explain myself. Like, I'm done explaining. Like, you all know, and this is just my limits. And I'm much more introverted. I used to be, like I said, go, 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 and very extroverted. I would never turn down an invite from friends to go out to dinner or to go, explore something. Now I'm kind of like, even when they invite me out to dinner, I'm like, oh, well, we can have dinner, in the house. Like, it's just, over time, I think it'll maybe improve. I don't know, it's too hard to tell. I do challenge myself sometimes, and like, I did just go to a graduation party, but I couldn't stay long. It was hot, and it was just too much. And so, knowing my limits makes it a little better.
My goal, seriously, my goal is to get on YouTube and to get it's how to do twice. Because Facebook, it drives me crazy. It just it works, but then it doesn't. And you can hear my dog. He wants to come in to see his mama, and I don't want him in my room. He can hear me. He goes, I want to see you. I want to see you.
I can't hear any of my dogs, and I have 5 dogs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're all rescues. They're old though. Yeah.
And another thing that I have told people, and I had to tell my daughter this. My kids were 10 and 12 when their dad's accident happened, so they were a very impressionable age. And a lot of people don't know about this. When they were little, I used to tell them stories with a stuffed animal called Robbie, and he was a raccoon. And Robbie always seemed to have the same issues that they were having. So if my kids were having a bad day at school, Robbie had a bad day at school. And then I would give them Robbie, tell me a story of, what's Robbie's next adventure? How should he handle it? And that was my way of doing things. So when Dan's accident happened, I brought Robbie into it. Robbie's dad had the same. And I explained to my daughter that there's a moment where you go through a process of mourning, because you're mourning the old person, because and somebody explained TBI to me in a really great way to understand. It's like your brain is like a computer and it crashes, and some of the software comes back up totally connected, fine. Then there's some software that kind of halfway, and then there's some that don't connect at all. And that's kind of how I explained it to my kids. But I wasn't sure about his personality. I was very fearful because the type of head injury he had, they had to intubate him sooner than later so that his brain could rest. My biggest fear is if he wakes up and he doesn't know me.
Yeah.
Or that was the scariest moment ever for me. But I did my own assessment. He was still moving his arms and the legs, and he was looking in directions. He had one eye swollen shut, but he would follow people. So I did tracking by having him follow me where I was in the room. So I knew he was aware of his environment, which was a good thing.
Yeah.
So it brought me hope. So then when he did came through, we had episodes of they can't do it now, but they had to tie him to the bed, his hands down. He just kept pulling out the tubes.
Oh yeah.
And trying up, and he was a fall risk, and he didn't understand danger. And they kept trying to tell him, but it was too early in his head injury. Plus, what was flying out of his mouth, everybody was mortified because he was so nasty to me. And I'm like, it's his head injury. It's his head injury speaking. It's not him.
Right.
When his brain calms down, he just had a trauma. When it levels out or plateaus out, then he will be who he is. Now he's a comedian, and he never knew it. So, because he says everything that you want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My husband is kind of told, he's like, simmer down a little bit. I was like, I don't, it's not, I just can't help. Sometimes I shock myself. I'm like, oh, okay, I just said that.
I'm sorry, I said that out loud.
I never apologize. I mean, unless it's like it's typically just some sarcasm or so, I don't know. I just say whatever happens, but it just is what it is, I guess. I don't know. Most people enjoy it because they want to say it and they don't. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Ex- um, yeah, it's definitely a journey that's you're recovering the rest of your life. You don't really fully recover some things, and it's like relearning things. And I think that's also in part of my poem, My Silent Rage, where you're relearning things. And I do have like a post that has different arrows where you would go in a road, and you're relearning things and readjusting, pivoting. I can't hear you. Oh, uh, go
Hold
ahead.
on.
Yeah, you got.
You can. It's really, it again. I go back to acceptance because, um, you're relearning things, but some things they can't be relearned. I mean, even to go back to me working as a nurse, I, it's not a possibility, and so I had to relearn what do I actually like doing or what do I love. I mean, at this time, I'm not able to work. Um, there's so many limits to what I'm able to do as far as like needing I can't be on screens very long. I can't even drive 30 minutes actually is all my doctor will allow me right now. I don't have any peripheral vision, and my vision is very blurred. It was affected a great deal. So sometimes it'll almost be like there's like a fog over my eyes and I really can't see much of anything. Um, so, there's so many limits. It's like, well, I have to figure out what I do enjoy doing. And so that's the other part to make it a positive. I mean, like I said, I wrote, and to go back to my husband, luckily, I mean, he did help me with that too, especially if I was getting too fatigued or tired and I just had to get a sentence out. Sometimes he would write it for me, and not very often, but and then I started making soaps and I just really started being creative. And that's really, I think, who I've always been. It's just, when you're in a world of work, 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 because everybody has to have a certain amount of money, you don't allow yourself to be authentic or create or do what might actually bring you joy. And that's another big piece to my book too, is life is short, and it's um, usually sad a lot of times. Things happen quite a bit, and so do what brings you joy and create and get that inner child back where they belong, because it's all you really have. You just
Right.
you know So that's another positive of TBI. It has taught me to slow down and be in the present moment and enjoy what is happening.
Mhm.
Allow for space, when needed for healing and rest and whatever.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. The My husband does rest a lot, and I know it's hard. He's always been a good natured person, and he likes to help people, and he still does. He helps our 81-year, no, she's not 81, she's not anymore, she's like 91. Um, so he does her lawn and he does the snow blowing. He's very careful. He does another neighbor on the other side. He helps them out because uh, he has a heart condition and diabetes, so he kind of helps him out. Um, and they're willing, they enjoyed, they let him help because it makes him feel good about himself. Because it wasn't easy for him. They forced him back to work, and he had to go back to the place where his accident happened. And seeing the bucket truck, the first day he was back, he had to leave early because he couldn't take it. And they don't realize how much trauma re-traumatized him
Yeah.
to go back to work and see that bucket truck, knowing that he could not do the job that he loved to do and had to give it up. And they were expecting him to get back in a bucket with a chainsaw 50, 60 feet in a year. I said, no, 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 no. I don't know if you experience, but he has dizzy, really serious dizzy. Even to this day, he gets dizzy from laying down to sit up.
Yep.
He has to sit on the side of the bed for a few minutes, focus on a wall so he doesn't keep being dizzy, but he also can't be in complete darkness because he will fall, because his body can't tell that he's standing, laying, or sitting.
Yeah.
That part of his brain is gone. Yeah. So I filter light throughout my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually fallen a few times. My husband actually saw one of them. Just I got so dizzy, and then like the room started spinning, and that off I went. And that's just it. I mean, even I don't know if your husband does this, but like there's times when I have to shower twice a day just because the first shower I just get too tired and too fatigued, and then I'm just done. So I don't, it's weird because I'm young, and I see myself as still capable, but then I realize, oh, holy cow, I'm wicked tired and I'm dizzy and I need to go sit down now and I can't finish my shower. Like that's a weird thing to think, but I've come to understand it and learn like, okay, this is it. Like you need to go sit down before you get hurt. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can forget that with a TBI too. Sometimes if you have a few good days, then the day that is not good, you're like, well, what the heck's happening?
Right. It's got to be hard and difficult. And it's not, it affects the whole family unit.
Yeah.
Careers, I no longer work with children, mainly because I have lumbar stenosis and I had back surgery. So I had to get out of working with at least the ABA program, and then I worked in a life skill. But financially, I couldn't do the job anymore because my husband can never work again. He has way too many issues, and now he has tremors in his right hand that we're trying to find out what is causing it. They believe that it's possible that the injury on the left part of his frontal lobe, it had expanded. They don't know why, and they think that's what's causing it. And they don't want to change medication and remove him from one medication that's been working because they're afraid of breakthrough and seizures.
Right.
So, and I know he has a really bad back and he probably needs surgery, but they're probably afraid to do surgery on him because there's so much risk with a head injury. My sister, she married, and the one that has the head injury, she has 2 beautiful daughters. She has 7 grandchildren, but each pregnancy she had to have a C-section because the pressure of giving birth might cause a problem.
Oh yeah,
like
yeah.
A stroke or anything. So they had to monitor her carefully and then plan a C-section because it was dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the other thing too, that you say that it's interesting because I was always kind of more of a adventurous person. Like if we went on vacation, I would zip line. I would, I've never parasailed, but I wanted to, or skydive. And like, I always would do these crazy, adventurous things. Now, of course, I'm like, if I walk outside, I'm like looking and making sure there's nothing flying around. And,
because of the trauma, your brain remembers it.
Yeah.
You don't
whole body. Yeah. Yeah.
But brain does. Your subconscious does.
Absolutely. And that's so, like, even with my kids, for example, my girls both play volleyball, and I used to be a volleyball player, and I love it. And they want me in there and playing, and every once in a while, like, I might bump a ball, but I can't really play. Like, I can't, get in there, and I'm always very cautious about anything we're doing because I don't want to get hit in the head again, and I don't want to get injured, and I don't. So it's I try not to think about, oh, I'm going to get re-injured, but at the same time, I do have to walk around with a very cautious manner because I just don't want to get hit in the head again. And I know you can't control everything,
No.
but obviously you can. If I can't play, sorry girls, I can't play volleyball, which that can alter my mood sometimes because then I feel like I'm disappointing them.
Right. And that's hard. That's hard. That's really hard, especially if you want to be in the activities, but you can't. Um, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard.
Yeah, I'm just um, I'm just going through my mind of different things. People don't really understand because, like you said in your book Invisible, they may look like a normal person, but they don't see the disability.
Hmm.
It is invisible for sure. And the way doctors even treat people. I've had neurologists. um, my husband has a hard time expressing himself. And I, like you said earlier, so I would jump in when I see him struggling because I don't want him to get agitated. I have to buffer. It's a constant thing. And it became second nature to me. So I would jump in, and I had one PA that I let my husband try to answer, and he couldn't answer it. And he said, "Well, does the wife know?" And I'm like, "You did just go there. You just did not go there." I said, "Yeah, the wife knows." And boy, did I tell him what I knew about my husband and his struggles. I went up one side and down the other. And I'm like, you don't say that to a patient and their loved one, especially their caregiver.
No, no, that's just it. That's it's frustrating because I mean there are a lot of providers. I do have a few now that are fantastic and so compassionate and just caring and actually they they're not just treating, and that's the big thing sometimes is they just treat symptoms. They're not treating the whole person. And no matter what you have, every single person is different, and they've gone through different things, and they've had different traumas and different accidents and whatever it may be. And so it's not just a symptom. Oh, you have a headache, so this works. No, I have a headache or a migraine because I have a TBI, and I got hit in the back of my head, and this is what. So it's like they have to take all that into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's that dynamic of you also feel rushed sometimes, like they just don't have
Right.
the time, and that can be frustrating, and especially for a brain injury like your husband. He might get to the answer if he had time,
Right.
but when you feel rushed and feel like you just don't have a moment to really think, then there's a lot that's missed. And then I mean, luckily you would go in with him and say things and report what you were seeing, but that's just definitely not a nice way to have a doctor, PA, whoever approach the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of it actually is what to do. I'm not like questioning their intelligence. I do believe providers, doctors, all very intelligent, but because not enough information or awareness or um, anything like that. They don't know sometimes what to do. And they do just throw a pill at you and say, well, let's give this a try.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they're doing with his tremors right now. He was supposed to see a specialist, a tremor specialist, in March, but they canceled in January, I believe, the end of January, because he had to be out of the office. They didn't specify. I'm assuming it was a family medical thing. He hasn't been back. I haven't heard anything. So I contacted the office again, and I'm like, I would like to get to the bottom of his tremors. I mean, what am I facing here? Because there's also statistics that say TBI survivors are high risk for Parkinson's, seizures, strokes, dementia, Alzheimer's. And now he developed these tremors on the right hand side that's presenting to me Parkinson's. Does he have Parkinson's? I have no clue. So he was given another neurologist in the meantime, and we're trying medication to see if it limits his tremors. It wasn't doing it, so he upped the medication. So we're in the trial stages of that because they don't want to take him off. He takes Depakote, a dual medication. It helps with mood swings and seizures, and it's worked for him. And they don't want to try to take him off because they're afraid he's going to have a breakthrough seizure.
Right.
There's also been a question whether he had a stroke at one point. And I believe, I was thinking back, we went to an event, a friend of ours was doing a cancer walk, and we went to it, and we're walking through the field, and all of a sudden I noticed his walk was different, his gait was different. He looked like someone that had cerebral palsy on one side of his body. And I told the doctor, I ended up firing that doctor. I ended up telling that doctor that. I said, do you think he had a seizure or do you think he had a stroke? Oh, no, blah, 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 blah. I said, but he got on, level ground and he was fine. So nothing came of it, but then it's showing up on his MRI, and I'm wondering if he did have a stroke back then, and I witnessed it. And we're just trying, it's a guessing game. And, and now my older sister, she has a pacemaker. She's getting more and more different things happening to her, but I'm sure you struggle with, I'm sure you remember things that you used to do.
Yeah.
In the past that was so easy and now it's so hard.
Well, driving.
He drive too far.
Yeah. That's definitely, but even just regular housework. It's, I used to be able to just clean the house in one day and that was that, and it would only take me a couple hours just to really deep clean and get to the nitty gritty of a dirty house. But now it's like, I can hardly, vacuum without feeling, my eyes will hurt. I'll feel dizzy. I, start to get a headache, or I'm so tired. Like it's not like tired. It's like this brain fog that just kind of takes over, and I can't function. And so, definitely there's things. I mean, pretty much everything I've done. I mean, and even, exercise. Before brain injury, I used to exercise every day, and it was like intense workouts. Now I definitely cannot do that. And although I found a very huge. Like, I just love yoga. I love Pilates, but it's very gentle. It's very, stretching, and but it helps me for sure to feel better, and well, it helps me more to be more motivated. You see, right now I'm getting my words all messed up because it's been, a while, and so I end up getting a little tired and just whatever. But everything, yeah, you have to learn to adapt to whatever it is you can do. And that's kind of how I see it now. And I do try, I do have negative days. I really, really do. I have the moments where I'm just like, oh, I'm just done. I can't do, I'm just done for the day. But for the most part, I do try to just think, well, I'm here. Obviously, I'm meant to be here for a reason, and I have a purpose, and um, it's just
a new purpose.
yeah, exactly. And that's exactly I have really learned to just live every day by day, and see what happens, and just go from there, because that's all we really can do. And so, okay, I can't vacuum today. I don't feel like it. Whatever. There's hair on the floor. It'll be all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to kill anybody. So, and also my kids have learned a lot about responsibility in the house. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my kids have learned it does. My husband's accident did affect them. My daughter goes through counseling, and she's dealing with, and I'm very proud of her. She's come a long way with her mental health, because it was very traumatic when my husband was put back to the place where he got hurt.
oh, yeah.
The kid was afraid daddy was going to get hurt again. I was having panic attacks. I had to be put on medication because I was fearful he was going to get hurt again. And what was going to happen, because it was a workman's comp situation. And the stories I've heard about workman's comp, oh my God, the workman's comp needs to be revamped, because they're sending people back to work when they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And they're not doing what they should be doing, is helping the employee get the care they need. And especially with my husband, a head injury, come on, you can't fake that. I even had word that there was a rumor going around that my husband was faking.
Well,
And I lost it. I said a CT scan and an MRI does not lie.
no. And I think people who say that are just, they're just kind of bitter to everybody in the world. I just don't understand, like, why would somebody put that much effort into faking something anyway? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Honestly, who wants to be sick? Who wants to be disabled? Who I would give anything to feel better again. Don't, like, and again, I work on it every day. I do think healing, it is an everyday effort to heal.
Mm-hmm.
But I would, if I could, my old self, and where I was able to function. But then again, I don't know, because then I wouldn't have learned all about this new me and what I really love doing, and all the creativeness that comes out of me. So, but I don't think people understand, like, nobody would ever, in my mind, fake a brain injury. You just can't. It doesn't make sense.
Right. And it takes probably a lot of energy for you to deal with everything that's in the environment around. You have your kids have friends over and they get loud. I'm sure it's like 10 times loud for you than it would be for me, because my husband, he has earplugs, and he likes to go to bed early because he gets tired, like you. He puts earplugs in because he can't deal with the noise.
Yeah. So, and that's something that's changed, actually. I used to love music, like lyrics, and I still do. And if I'm feeling okay, I definitely will I will listen, and we all like to sing along, my girls and I. But now I more have to listen to, if I want music on or if I'm meditating, it has to be something without any lyrics. It's just instrumental, because the I don't know, the voices, it's like a vibration that it just sets me off to this. My whole like nervous system is like, whoo, you're done for the day. Like go lock yourself in your bedroom. Um, Everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've got teenagers, so there are teenagers, uh, and they are loud and they are, rambunctious. And just to backtrack, though, my girls were with me during when I was hit with the umbrella, and my daughter Sophia was actually sitting right across from me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another positive I bring out of it, is I am happy it hit me,
Right.
because it could have killed her. It could have really. She was 10, 10 or 11 at the time. She was 10, and my other daughter was 9. And my 10-year-old, she went to counseling and because she really, I mean, both of them, it really impacted. They saw blood everywhere and they thought I was dead. So,
Oh,
yeah, it was just life changing for them. And I'm proud of them too, because they've really come out of this a much more understanding for their age. But that's the part too, where the person with the TBI feels a little guilt, especially when they have kids, because I don't want to be the mom being like, oh, quiet down,
yeah.
oh, go.
My husband was always afraid to reprimand the kids because he had no control what came out of his mouth.
Yeah,
And if it came out too harsh, he felt horrible. I mean, I remember when he first came home and he was triggered by something and he literally verbally attacked me. And I walked away and came in my bedroom because I'm not going to deal with that. And he came in and he goes, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I hear the words coming out that are hurtful and I don't want to hurt you. And you're the last person, but I can't control it. I can't control it. And I'm tearing up because it was a very emotional time because he's like, I wasn't born this way. What are we going to do now?
that's a big piece. I've definitely said things that it's pure frustration and upset and triggers. That's exact. I went to my son's basketball game. This was a couple of years ago, and I was still working, and I shouldn't have gone. And looking back, it's like, well, I refuse to miss things for my kids, and especially, oh, brain injury, I'm not gonna miss this. And I had a really bad headache after work, and I took Tylenol, and that didn't work. I took Motrin, that didn't work. So I took my emergency med,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a newer med. And so I was like, all right, let's see. And I went to the game, and everything was triggering me. Like watching them run back and forth on the court. It was like, this is terrible. My eyes can't keep up. My everything started getting like going vertigo. The whole room was spinning. Then I started feeling nauseous. Then my heart started racing. Then I started getting sweaty. I had a full-blown panic attack due to a migraine.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that was going on. I mean, I was in a gym full of people. It was way too much noise. It was way too many lights. It was too much stimulation. So I ended up going to the ER. And that was a little mortifying because, unfortunately, I mean, my heart rate was like 140. My blood pressure was up. Everything was just full panic, and the ER doc asked me if I was on any street drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was an addict coming in, having like
Withdrawal.
withdrawal or what, I don't know, I guess, or a reaction to a medication, a drug, I don't know. And it turned out I was allergic to the emergency migraine med. I had, yeah. So
Oh, wow.
I, and so so, I actually reached out to that ER, and I let them know, I understand there's an epidemic of addiction and drug abuse, but you really should not look at everybody the same way. And that was really mortifying. And since then, there have been a few other times I should have went to the ER. I had this experience where my whole face went numb.
Oh, wow.
And again, my heart started racing, and I was having like this, but I calmed myself down and I did other things, and I did not go to the ER because I did not want to be treated the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other piece to it too. It's like sometimes with a TBI, you don't always make the best choices either, because you don't want to deal with more providers not knowing what to do.
Right. And that's where we need more information for these doctors. It's too bad that there couldn't be like a specialty for just TBI. Like a clinic or something where they just deal with TBI. And the changes that do happen later on. They don't tell you about that. They don't tell you that the effects are forever.
Right.
Or you're going to have more symptoms. So, if my son, though, he was 10 and he turned out to be my little man who was kind of my little support. He knew when to give me a hug when I needed it.
Aww.
To get me through this. And to explain it to him, how do you explain it to children? They also need the information, and it needs to be age appropriate. Mm-hmm. Never mind the doctors, but the family.
Yeah.
Granted, we had great social workers, but where were they afterwards?
Right. Right, and that's a big piece too, is the follow up afterwards.
There's no aftercare.
Right, and that's huge. But that's just it, though. They treat it like it is like a broken leg, and the bone's going to heal, and even though the bone heals with a broken leg, it is more susceptible to re-injury, and it's more susceptible to, feeling certain ways if you bump it wrong, or if I've heard people say, "Oh, it's going to rain." I had a broken bone and I can feel it in my bone. Like, it's no different with a brain injury. It's brain injury is very complex and very complicated. I just think that there should be a whole lot more follow-up care and therapy and family therapy. I mean, my husband and I, we are in therapy. Mm-hmm. We definitely had to, because like you said, I've said things and I don't mean them necessarily, it's just the moment, and you're irrational, and you don't, you're not thinking, and things do just come out of your mouth, and you don't. But it's also a frustration, I think, for TBI survivors, because the ones who are closest to you, you don't feel the need to have to continue to explain, but that's what you feel like you're doing a lot of.
Yeah. And what is the saying? You always strike out the ones that care the most.
Yeah.
Because they're forgiving.
Yeah, there's definitely that piece too, where obviously there are the comfort and the closest, and so it's clearly easier to lash out. Mm-hmm. Although it's not. It's not, because I do think as a survivor, like, I do feel, terrible afterwards. And I've learned a lot, and I have a lot of really good coping mechanisms that I've learned along the way, to where I try my hardest to just walk away and write. And usually I'll write it all down, and then I don't feel the need to say it anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a life changer.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think the more of us who, and that, that's my book. It didn't start out as a book. It really started out as journals. It was journaling and poems and this and that. And then something this clicked and I was like, oh, I need to share this because others need to know.
Yeah.
There was a point where I was suicidal. I mean, I was like, and I went to my husband and I think it scared him. He was like, is that our only option for you to go inpatient? And I kind of shut down after he responded that way. Now I've learned, like, clearly he's not a medical person. He doesn't know, and I think he was responding out of fear, responding out of not knowing what to do. And I think a lot of people, that's, yeah, the information. And then with brain injury, it's, this is another piece not talked about. You as a survivor, you really don't, you do, like, something's wrong, but you can't do anything to fix it. And so you do become, either you isolate or you become extremely depressed or you become hopeless. And that, no medication will fix that, because the antidepressants and all that is supposedly for a chemical imbalance. Well, a brain injury is not a chemical imbalance, it's an injury.
Right.
So you're depressed or you're anxious or you're hopeless or you're this, well, you can take the antidepressant. It may or may not work, and I'll tell you, I took them and they did not work at all.
I bet you they feel worse.
It did, actually. And I don't take it now. And my goal was to get off meds, and it still is. I still take a few that I'm, working on very hard to get off of. But I'm patient, and again, you have to be compassionate. But the antidepressants made me worse. And, there was that point where I was just kind of hopeless, and I was like, what else is there to do? Like, why? And there's a lot of TBI survivors who I've heard stories, where they have taken their life, or they have, tried, or, whatever. And it's like, where's the awareness for that too? Your brain has an injury, and you may or may not really know what to do in a situation, and the impulse is there.
Yeah, and some of them also turn to drugs and alcohol.
And I wrote about that in my book. I actually said, I don't remember word for word, but it was, I can understand why somebody would turn to drugs or alcohol and become an addict, because in these situations, it's almost like you would rather numb than to continue a path of feeling so hopeless or so, like, not knowing. You go to some doctors and they're like, oh, I don't know what we can do, or let's try this, and this, and then it doesn't work. Not that I mean, that was never an option for me. I would not, but I can empathize with an addict, and kind of understand, like, why they may feel the way they do and why they do turn to the drug or the alcohol. Which is unfortunate, right? Because they're going through something that's causing that shift, and you don't, like, nobody deserves to go through that in this world. That's why we all should be compassionate and loving and caring, and I have found that in this world we do ignore people more than I've ever seen in my life, because none of us want to interfere. But sometimes I think if we interfered a little more and asked somebody if they needed help, it might actually make a huge difference.
Yeah. I think it would. Hey, how you doing? It's simple. Hey, how are you? Or hey, how you doing? What's up?
Yeah, my husband and I walk every evening. Sometimes he doesn't go with me, but if I see other people and even if I don't know him, I'm like, hey, how are you today? And he's like, who are they? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who they are. Might as well say hi, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think as society, we just lost that. because we're so into technology. There's no social skills,
Yeah,
social graces, respect, understanding, and patience. I think we're missing a lot of that.
we are. Yeah, we definitely are. And that's, another piece I hope people, like a reader, gets from my book um, is is that, as a society, we need to start looking out for each other more,
Mm-hmm.
and really, check on your neighbor. I just think that's so important because I was off of social media for 4 years after I went off. I didn't want to, be on. I was told no screens. I was told stay off of any screens as much as possible. So I didn't want the temptation to be like, oh, let me scroll. And being off of social media, I think helped with the healing process too. Not saying social media it's not all bad. There are
Right.
bad things about it, but
There are.
there are also useful things I would have never found. You and I would have never connected, or me and other people. And I think that's the positive, and it's a great way to spread awareness. But um, like, I love people, and they've all checked on me, and they've all been very positive. But I'm like, oh, come over for coffee, and we could chat about it. Like, that's what I think is missing too. And I do think maybe at the time when I was really struggling, if I had that, I wouldn't have been struggling as much. And so I want to make sure that I'm able to do that for people.
Right.
If they need me to come over, then I'll come over. If they don't want to be alone or feel lonely, then we need to reach out.
Yeah. Well, I let it go longer because of big technical issues we were having. One of these days, hopefully, I'll be on YouTube live. I need subscriptions, so people out there that see this, please go to my YouTube channel, which is Sue Dexter-Understanding TBI, where you can find a lot of my information. And I will post your information where you can get your book. Feel free to post it on Facebook, but I gotta warn you, if you do it too many times, they'll see it as spam.
Oh,
so
okay.
If you do it like once a week or twice a week, that's fine. But if you do it on a daily basis, it'll come into my box as a spam. I don't know. But, Facebook is really good with security.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the group itself, I get notifications. But thank you to members who make me aware of things that are going on, because this group has expanded to the as you can tell, I am like speechless on how much has grown. I never anticipated to grow. And like I said, it's a need. And my next live will be next Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my guest it's going to be called a game changer. He was involved in another book. It's Paul Miles Fridays. Sorry, Paul, if I messed up your name. I'm not good with names. But he's going to be my guest next Saturday, where we're going to talk about TBI and CTE. He just wants to share it with hope, love, inspiration, and he's gained a lot of experience in this journey. And I'm excited to have him. I'm excited to have you. I have had nothing but authors, which is great because books.
Name again. I heard you say it, but it sounds like something I'd want to read. So I'll have to.
Yeah. He was involved in that book. I told him, like I told you, send me a picture of you holding your book. because that's what our topic is going to be, and a picture is 1,000 words.
Oh yeah.
Easier.
Yeah.
And I'll do my little magic. How did you like my magic?
I liked it. It was very, very nice.
And
it's good job, because I can't. I mean, I'm not tech savvy. Like, and like I said, I was off for 4 years. A friend of mine, she's like, "Oh, you should create some reels to show your book off and stuff." And I was like, "How? How do I do that?" As you can see, it took me what 2 minutes to get logged into here. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, this is still a learning curve for me. Getting people to come on. There's one that I did. I actually got 3 people in.
Wow.
I'm so proud of myself. I was like, yay, if I could do jump backs, I would. I had to contain myself, but it was huge. But like I said, I would love to do YouTube. I need more subscriptions. I'm up to 52.
So will this be on YouTube? Because I do plan to post onto my site and ask.
I will let you know.
Okay.
I have to. That's the other thing. I have to download it, edit, and then put it up. And I have a studio with YouTube now that I downloaded, so I can do it. It's easier. My son will probably be the one that helps me edit. He's my tech guy. He's actually going to Porter and Chester to do computer stuff.
Oh wow.
He's my tech guy. So if I run into any issues, he helped me with my backdrop. You put that up. Because I didn't want just doors. I'm looking for a back.
I like.
Yeah, something nice instead of, because I just had a wall with 2 doors. I'm moving up. I'm moving up in my little studio here.
Yeah.
So backdrop, I need a new backdrop. But this is doable.
I like. Yeah. I like wolves though.
But I want to thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
And please join me August 10th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with my guest Paul Miles Phrase. And I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, Paul. I look forward to talking to you like I look forward to talking to you, Amber.
Thank you.
You
have a good day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye.
Peace and be safe.